Hello everyone, in this tutorial I will discuss the two-dimensional array in Java programming. Basically this is the same with one-dimensional array, it's just that this time you have rows and columns of data or value in one variable. But before I continue, please support the channel by clicking on the subscribe button and hit also the notification bell so that you will be notified with all the new videos that I'm going to upload in this channel. And so, like I said a while ago, two-dimensional arrays just basically the same in terms of concept with one-dimensional array. The only difference here is that in two-dimensional array, you have rows of values and columns of values. So you have rows and columns. And you are using only one variable. So one variable will be able to hold all these values. For instance here, so we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 12 values. All are stored in a two-dimensional array. Just like in one-dimensional array, each value are stored in what we call element. And so for instance, in element number 1, we have value here 1. Element number 2 will be in this element will be the 2, and then in this element will be the 3. Just like single-dimensional array, for each element, it has also an index address. So as you can see here, the first box here, or the first element here, the address of this will be 0 and 0. That means row 0, column 0. So this first row here, this will be row 0, and for each box here or element, that would start with 0 and then 1, 2, and 3. So the complete address of the first element here in the first row is row 0, column 0. The second one, which is this one, this will be row 0, column 1. The other one is row 0 and column 2. So, and so on. So that's how you address the values, or where you put the values in a double-dimensional array. So for each value, they have its own index address for accessing and assigning the values. So that's how you place the value inside an element of a two-dimensional array. So if we will take this example here, the first element at row 0, column 0, 1, in programming, this is how you do it. Here you go, X, then 0 here, and 0 here. So the first 0 here, this is the row, and the second 0 here will be the column. So row first and then the column address. Okay, so for instance here, 2, this value here 2, so you have to put it as something like 0, row 0, and then column 1, because that's the address of value 2 here. Okay, and so on. So it's very easy to follow. You just have to follow the index address of each values here. So those are assigned here. All right, so it's going to be like that. Now, how do we declare? To declare 3 rows by 4 columns, because our array here is 3 rows. It has 3 rows by 4 columns. It has 4 columns. So to declare that, I already have it here at row number 9. So in row number 9 here, so we have to declare the data type, what data type it can hold. Just like single dimensional array, it can only hold one data type. The values will only use one data type. So all of this will be int. So we have here int x, open and close square bracket, open and close square bracket, is equal to new int, and then inside the open and close square bracket will be 3, that means 3 rows, and we have here 4, that means 4 rows. So it's going to be like that. So that means we have 3 rows by 4 columns of integer array, right? It will have only integer values. Definitely you can also have different types, like for example here you would like to create a string of 3 rows like this. So let's say for example you have y here, so you have a variable y, array y, that can hold string data type or data value with 3 rows and 4 columns. Okay, so you can specify your own rows and columns. Let's say another one, 2 rows by 4 columns. That is also possible. So you define the size of your array, so it's somewhere like this here. Alright, so that's how it is. Simple as that. So nothing is very difficult here. You just have to know where is the row and the column. So the row is always the first value that you will assign, and this one will become the column. I have also a video regarding single dimensional array. For you to understand this topic, it's better that you understand first the single dimensional or one dimensional array, which I have also in this channel. There you go. Here it's a 21-minute video about one dimensional array. I hope you will be able to see this one first and then go to the double dimensional array. So going back here, so since these are our values now, by following this diagram here, so how can we get the values? So this is assigning values. So we have assigned 1 here in this address, 2 in this address, and 3 in this address. So how do we get the values? Just like one dimensional array, so it will be the same. So let's say I'm going to say so it will just be the same, just this time you have to specify row and column. So for instance, I would like to print this one here, the 12. So what is the address of 12? The index address of 12, that is row 2, column 3. Alright? By the way, it starts with 0. All starts with 0 in Java when it comes to array. So if I will run now, I'm going to press F6. And there you go. So we have here the 12. So as simple as that. Now since these are numbers, because these are int data type, therefore we can use this for computation. Like for instance, something like this. So I would like to add this value here plus the value of 0 and 0. So row 0, column 0. That means this one here, I should be getting 13. It should print 12 and 13, as you can see here. Alright, so it's going to be something like that. It's allowed, no? So because these are numbers, or double. If you have double data type, they are also possible for computation. Alright, so also the address can be represented by a variable. Okay, by a variable. Let's say for instance we have here int, let's say r is equal to let's say 0, and int c is equal to 0 also. So I can also use those here. There you go. So this r means 0, this c means 0, so I should be getting the same. I just run now, so I should be getting 13. So that's how we use the variables in replacement for the actual index address, or actual value for index address. So as simple as that, right? So also you can define another way to define this, because we all know the values of 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the values, right? We assign these values to each of these element address. So if we know the values, all right, there's another way to define the array with these values, because we are using a lot of lines here, a lot of program lines here. So to save some space there, we can also assign something like this. So I can say, instead of like this, I can say, so this one here, instead of like that, so we can say here int, let's say x is equal to open and close curly bracket. Then inside will be another sets of, or a pair of pairs of curly brackets. So if you have 3 rows, so you will have something like 1, 2, 3 rows. So these are the rows. Okay, so first row here, second row here, third row here. Alright, so that's how it is. So in the first row, 1, 2, 3, these are the values. In the second row, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in the third row, that would be 9, 10, 11, and 12. So basically, it's the same with this. Another way to do that is by this, or another way to do this is by this. It will be the same. So if I'm going to remove this, okay, for instance, we will remove this. There you go. So I'm going to run now. It should be the same result. So 12 and 13, those are what we want to print. So it will be the same result. So that is if you know the value immediately, right? So it's something like that. You can also use scanner for user input, and whatever you input, that will be stored in an array. All right, so something like that. You can also use that, just like in the one that I discussed in one-dimensional array in that video. You can watch that. So you can also use that technique here in double-dimensional array. So again, the only difference is the address. All right, so you have to specify the row and the column. So to give you a simple example of that, let us use the scanner. Let's say scanner data is equal to new scanner system.in. Let's say like that. So since I am using scanner, so we have to use the java.util-scanner class. So it's there now. So let us input. For instance, I would like to input, okay, here in row 0, column 1. Row 0, column 1. I'm going to change the value. Right now it is 2. As you can see here, it is now 2. Okay, that's the value. So whatever I input, I will change that value 2 to my new input. Okay, user input. So let's say, let's continue that. System.out.println. Let's say input a number. Let's say like that. So this time I'm going to input, let's say int, let's say y, let's say new data is equal to data that next int. Okay, sorry, I will not use the new data because we're going to use the array. So I'm just going to say like this. I'm going to store it in row 0, column 1. That is what we have said, right? It will be here. Whatever I input, it will change the 2 to whatever I input. So it's going to be something like that, right? So okay, I have to remove the int there. So it's going to be like this. So this is the one that is correct. So whatever I input, it will now go here. All right, so to print that, let us print that one. I will print it as the last value to be printed. So 0, 1. All right. So to make sure that we are correct, I'm going to print that before I'm going to input. So it's like this. So we should be getting initially it's 2, and then the last value will be the new value that I'm going to input. Let's try to run it. Alright, so it printed 2, right? That's the value. So it printed 2 there because that's the value of that address. 0, and 1. So row 0, column 1. All right. So now I'm going to input. Let's say I'm going to input 100. I'm going to press enter. There you go. So it printed 12, it printed 13, and then the new value that we inputted, it was stored here in this address. So it's now 100. So this one is now the 100 there. Okay, so I hope you got that instruction there. I mean the way on how to do that. All right. So as simple as that. You can also place the scanner, no, the data in this one here. You can also place that in a looping statement. Right. So again, that video that I have, one-dimensional array, will help you on how to do that. You can watch that and see how it was done, and you can also apply that one here. Again, the only difference is that this one is a double-dimensional array, right? So the only difference is that here you specify the row and the address of column, or the column address. All right, so it's something like that. We can also have some traversing, no? So for instance, I'm going to I'm going to remove this one here. Traversing, like I said, traversing means going through, no? Going through each of the elements. So for instance, I have a problem like I'm going to print the values starting from the first row, going to the last column of the first row, and then followed by the second row going to the last column of the second row, and third row, and then going to the last value of the third row. So I'm just going to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 by traversing using loop statement. All right, because if you will not use loop statement and you want to print all this, you will come up with 12 system.out.print line just for printing, 12 like that, and so it will be a long one. So you will go something like this, system.out.print line. So I'm going to let's say print the first value, which is something like this. All right, oops, sorry, there you go. So it should be like this. So as you can see, you have to do something like this, 12 like this, because you're printing 12 different values. All right, but there is a way to do that by using a loop statement, wherein one by one you will get, starting from 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. So it's row by row and then column by column. All right, so in that row, column by column, then you move to the second row and then column by column. So that's how we want to traverse. That's how we want to get the data. All right, so it's going to be like that. So I'm going to say here, first, because we're going to get all these numbers, row 0 first, and then we'll go to each column. So I'm just going to use the for statement. Of course, you can use while statement or the do while statement, but I will be just using the for statement. So I'm just going to use the row, the R. Initially, it will be 0 because we will start in row 0, and then R less than equal, let's say, how many rows we have? 1, 2, 3. So we have until 2, right? So because this is 0, row 0, row 1, row 2. So we are only until row 2, and then row plus plus or R plus plus. There you go. The next one will be the column. I will start from column 0 up to 3 because we have 3 columns. 4 actually. 0, 1, 2, 3. So until 3 only. So this is good. 3, and then followed by the C. All right. So it's something like that. And then I'm just going to print now. There you go. So instead of this, I can say variable like this. Okay. So we're expecting to print all the values of our array. Right. So starting from 1, followed by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. So if I'm going to run now, there you go. So we have the 1 to 12 values. So basically, it is a loop within a loop, right? So the first loop loop. So the first loop will simply get the first value, right? R will be 0. Then the column will be 0. Alright, so that's how it is, this one here. Okay, so to get the 1. And then it will loop again here. Line number 19. By this time, C will become 1. And so still R is still 0. So row 0, column 1. And then it will loop back here in line number 19. And this time, C will become 2. And so R is still 0. C is now 2. So we're printing 3. And then it will loop back here in line number 19. C will become 3. Our R is still 0. Right? Remember, it is only looping here in number 19. So 19, 20, 21. 19, 20, 21. It's going to be like that. And so it's like that. So now when the C becomes 4, it will no longer execute this. C less than equal 3, right? Because this C will become 4. So we don't have a 4. So after that, it will go back to 22 and will return to number 18 to continue. By this time, the R is now 1, right? So meaning to say, our row is now 1. It's no longer 0. All right? So that's how it's going to work. The loop statement here. It's a case of loop within a loop functionality. All right? So that's how it is. Of course, you can use while statement, like I said, or the do while statement. So this is how we traverse one by one. No? It is also possible to traverse from this column first. You get 1, and then you get 5, and then you get 9, and then you get 2, you get 6, you get 10. What we did is we get 1, 2, 3, 4, followed by this, then this, and so on. So it is also possible like that. No? So it's very easy to do that. I'm sure you can figure it out. But by using this technique here, this one here, I'm sure you can get it. All right. So let's say, for instance, another one is I would like to get the sum of all these numbers. All right. If I want to get the sum of all these numbers, so I'm just going to use the same code. So I'm just going to say here, let's say sum is equal to 0. There you go. So this is the one that is getting each number, right? So here I'm just going to say sum is equal to sum plus this one here. There you go. So after the loop, all I need to do is to print the sum. So I'm just going to copy that and just say here there. Oh, all right. It should be only this. There you go. So I should be expecting the sum of all the numbers at the bottom part. So if I run now, oops, I have a mistake here. Two-dimensional array. Oops, it should not be like this. It should be the variable sum. Okay, sorry about that. It should be the variable sum there. All right, so not the array. So I'm going to run again, and there you go. The sum of all these values here, if you will compute all these values, if you get all the sum of this, that will be 78. All right. So I hope that is very clear for you. I hope you have learned in this video on how to assign a value to a array, double dimensional array. But first of all, how to define a two-dimensional array and how to assign and get the value of each element. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on my next one.